Right, back live with you, and thanks so much for staying on the news feed. PM. State mortuaries across the country facing a severe and persistent crisis of overcrowding. Situation primarily driven by the escalating number of unclaimed bodies. This challenge places immense strain on forensic pathology services, stretching storage capacity to its limits and creating a complex logistical and administrative nightmare, really, and ethical dilemmas for health authorities as well. Well, let's speak about this. We're talking now to the chairperson of the National Forensic Pathologists Committee, the committee that advises the Minister on Health on such matters, Dr. Thakadu Mamashela. Good to have you, Doc, and thank you very much for coming on the Newsfeed PM this afternoon. How are you advising the Minister on this particular question of the backlog, because people are just not coming forth to claim bodies?
Thanks, Tabo, for the opportunity, and good afternoon to your viewers. You're correct. This is it remains a burden and on our side as a department. But I think what is important is for me to also actually shed the light in terms of why do we have anybody that comes to a forensic pathology services mortuary, because there are factors there that are actually leading to that burden when it comes to the overcrowding that you mentioned there. The Forensic Pathology Services, remember, is responsible for assisting in the investigation of unnatural deaths, meaning your interpersonal violence, accidents, suicides, drownings, the unnatural deaths that are being investigated by the South African Police Services to determine the cause and the circumstances of the death. Now, one of the things there is to actually also establish the identity of the person who has died. Now, in our country, remember, you are registered, you get documented when you are born, and people who are in South Africa must be documented. But unfortunately, in most cases, when we are done with our investigations of the human remains to assist the process of police to investigate, families do come forth or families are known and then bodies are released for burial. But often, that is where no families are coming forth. And two, when the police are actually conducting those investigations to determine who is this person, they don't get this person on the system in South Africa as documented. So that is exactly what I wanted to share the light so that we can understand some of the factors that are actually confronting us on that, on this problem of unclaimed bodies.
So once you have done the work that you're saying you are then obligated to do in terms of the law and the services that you provide as forensic pathologists, now you remain with these bodies. What is your understanding around the reasons why others would come, claim, others would just not come?
So the two factors that I just mentioned is that in our country, people move around. Someone may move from one province to the other for socio-economic reasons, and a person has not been seen for many years or many months. But we find that unfortunately this person died in another province, but the family that is in question, when they don't interact with this person, they don't actually come forth and report a person as missing, for an example, when they can't get hold of a person. Two is those that are not documented but they are in this country. When the police are now investigating, because police are the custodians of this process, they'll go to the systems, and when they check where the person is actually identifiable, they don't find this person on the systems of South Africa. But the families who don't come forth, these are the families that ordinarily, if a person is not physically identifiable, or they are not able to identify with certainty using physical methods, the scientific methods that are actually kicking in, such as the DNA that is normally spoken about, the families are not coming forth, then there won't be any comparison with a particular family. And that body will remain unknown and unclaimed in our public facilities.
And what is the protocol then at that particular point? Of course, you're relying on the police in the process a lot, but while the police are carrying out their investigative processes, yourself, what's the protocol that then you need to follow with the bodies that are at your disposal, if for lack of a better word?
So we follow the law again. The National Health Act, we do have regulations regarding the rendering of forensic pathology service, and they're clear when it comes to what needs to be done. It says the two of us, that is Forensic Pathology Services and the South African Police Services, we run this process jointly. But it's prescriptive that clause that says if after 30 days the process has been embarked on and the police have satisfied themselves that they are unable to then identify this person with all the methods that they use, then the local authority, that is the municipality where this person actually died, must then come and take over and afford those human remains a proper burial, for an example, or whichever method that they would want to dispose. That is the municipality's responsibility. So the law is quite prescriptive on that. That's what we follow.
Now, what can be done then as far as the situation of overcrowding is concerned? I mean, we've had this conversation before. Others are saying part of the challenge is we don't have a comprehensive, as you've mentioned, DNA database. If we can fix that, then at least we can be able to go into the files and be able to quickly link the deceased with their families. Others are saying, well, why is government not expanding the storage capacity and improve on mortuary infrastructure? Of the two, I mean, what do you think can immediately be done, and what would be the way to go?
Both are possible solutions, but the infrastructure one, in fairness, when it comes to this particular problem, is not necessarily a challenge. And I'll give you an example, just an overview in terms of our storage capacity across the country in provinces. We do have a capacity of about in excess of 6,000 that we are able to store across 9 provinces, which is more than that, actually, because the 2 provinces are not included in that number. And the current status where we are, we do have unclaimed bodies that are totaling 2,219 where we are. And if you recall, last year, we had excess of 3,000 during this particular, more or less the same period. Now, there are gains when it comes to dealing with this issue, because it is all about the stakeholders that are responsible to come on board and deal with this particular issue, such as, like I've mentioned, when Forensic Pathology Services and SAPS are in constant communication, because that is one of the key issues that we discovered when we're advising the minister in terms of what are the factors, what are the reasons. As we moved around the provinces, you found that there were pockets of miscommunication and not interacting as stakeholders. Now, the third stakeholder is the local authority, who is the municipalities. Now, if I may just say to you, when you ask the question in terms of what have we been doing about this, with regards to local authorities, for an example, the Deputy Minister, Dr. Joe Patha, after we have advised to say that we need someone from Kokta, for an example, who can come and deal with this issue for us and make sure that there is a common understanding across provinces. He reached out to the counterpart, Dr. Mamashela, who assigned an official. We are interacting with that official on that part of the municipalities. The part of SAPS is guided by a memorandum of understanding that has recently been reviewed as well and signed by our Director General and the National Police Commissioner. That talks to what must we do as two parties so that we avert this type of situation where a body remains in a facility for quite a long period. The DNA database, yes, you are right. If we have that, remember, then it means that when someone is unidentifiable by physical methods and we embark on the scientific methods, then it will simply to run on the database and we identify, provided again that this person is actually also documented in this country. The problem is, if you still have undocumented persons, the problem is going to persist. The high level of trauma and violence in terms of accidents and interpersonal violence, remember, they put pressure on our system as well as a society.
Now, to the layman, Doc would say, well, why then, once the responsibility after 30 days falls under the municipality, why don't they have mass state funerals? Is there a policy against that prohibits them?
I wouldn't know particularly because that is their area as municipalities and COCTA that actually they can look into that, or if there is such. But what I know is that most municipalities, they do have systems in place when it comes to management of this particular problem. When we are done, when we hand over, they do have service providers from the private sector, for an example, who are private undertakers that are either contracted to municipalities, and they do bury as and when. Because remember, the issue here is to avoid having a lot of bodies accumulating in facilities. So as and when that 30-day lapses, you want to activate the local authority to come on board and take that. But one of the important things that I also want to mention, Thabo and the viewers, is that remember this problem, we won't have a zero number of unclaimed bodies on the basis of the factors that I've mentioned. We run a 24-hour service, remember, as much as we have buried. And I'll give you an example. KZN that had high numbers last year, up to now, they managed to bury more than 1,000 bodies. But remember, on a day-to-day basis, bodies come in and then they are declared on a day-to-day basis. Hence, you will still have a number. But the fundamental principle here is to have those systems in place in terms of how do we deal with this problem as stakeholders. Remember, as like I mentioned, it's not necessarily a Department of Health only issue. It's a multi-stakeholder issue in terms of the approach.
The chairperson of the National Forensic Pathologists Committee, advising the Minister of Health, Dr. Thakadu Mamashela there.